Hey guys, this is Ken McElroy, and you are listening to the Mailbox Money Show with Bronson Hill.
Welcome, friends. I'm so excited to have Brian Luebben today. He is amazing. The idea of going from being passive in your investments to being passionate. And really, at the end of the day, we all want to do something that makes a difference in the world. We all want to live from a place where we feel most alive. I found this interview to be so inspiring. I hope you enjoy it. Please share it with a friend, and let's jump in. Brian, welcome. How's it going, brother? Good to have you today. Have you on the show.
Dude, when and where are we traveling together? Because now I'm
We got
fired
to
up.
figure
Me
that
and you,
out. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
me and you were speaking off here, and it's like these passive guys, these passive investors, they're traveling around the world, man. Like, what are these guys doing? I'm
I know.
all in.
Well, it's funny. I traveled 6 times international last year. You traveled for 6 months straight, which sounds like was a great and terrifying experience as well, just for the length you were gone. But no, I love it. I'm always planning my next trip. We talked about Nepal and India coming up, and you're getting ready. You got a couple trips coming up. Where's your next big trip you're doing?
Yeah, so I just got off of a season of like I felt like a freaking marshmallow, and so I think it's a cool little side tangent, which we can go into like the whole introduction and everything. But
Yeah.
there's so many people that are listening to this podcast, and they're just like, man, I can't wait for that day where I could be like Bronson and Brian and traveling, and I'm fully passive. And I'm here to tell you, my brother and my sister, like you will get the passive income that you're looking for by listening to this podcast, but afterwards, if you think that you're going to live a passive life, you are wrong. Because that's what happened, man. I feel like a freaking marshmallow. I just got off of Colombia, then I went to Hawaii to see Brandon Turner.
Wow.
The tall, bigger pockets,
Beardy
bearded,
Brandon.
yeah, the bearded real estate investor we all know and love. And after that, I'm just like, man, this is too much. I need to go do some hard stuff. So now I'm
Yeah.
buckled down here in Austin, Texas, focusing on the investing, focusing on the business, and then I'm earning my next season of leisure, which will be in July. We're going to go back to Europe and do a bunch of fun stuff for about a month and a half. But yeah, 8 months for the first trip immediately after quitting my job in
Wow.
2022. That was an experience, to say the least.
Yeah, I want you to get into that, and we're going to jump into that. And this is a great because you have the Action Academy, which you're teaching people how to take action and how to get going. And even at 29 years old, you were able to quit your job. And my book's Fire Yourself, so you're able to fire yourself. Your book is Passive to Passionate: How to Quit Your Job, Grow Your Wealth, and Turn Passions into Profits. So, talk to us a little bit about your journey. I think it's a really cool, compelling story, and you did it in a very short time, even very, very young. A lot of people are 40s, 50s, or older, and like, man, I want to do what you did in your 20s. So talk to us about how and why you did what you did.
Yeah, so I did a pretty traditional upbringing. I graduated college, marketing degree, found out about, variable income, aka commission, and I was like, man, I got to go all in on that thing. So I went to sales, sold my way into a position I had no business qualifications for. So I got into a pretty good sales job right out the gate,
What kind of
and
sales
just
can I ask? I was medical device sales for 10 years.
so you're probably familiar with Centos. So
Yeah.
it was the uniforms. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
good.
and I
Okay.
say and I say the name of the company because though my mission and my message is to help people replace corporate with cash flow and go from employee to entrepreneur, it was still a wonderful company and a wonderful experience, which is actually a really cool point that I like to talk about on podcasts, which is the most difficult position to leave is good enough.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
most difficult position to leave is good enough. Or, in your relationships, how many people do you know in a marriage that's good enough?
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
it. Well,
and
most
it's
most people settle, right? And that's the thing. Like I called the golden handcuffs, right? I was making over 200K a year working a corporate job, and it was too good to your family's like, my family was, why would you ever want to leave your great job? I was working 30 hours a week. And so for you, you came to that same point where you're like, this is good enough is not good enough for me. So how did you get to that?
right.
Like what happened there? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was working the sales job, made it to the top of the company. I was number 8 out of 5,079 reps. So I
Wow.
like to say that because some people would be like, "Oh, I'm the top sales rep, and you got 12 people in the company."
Yeah.
So
Like
I
point
gave
one, you're
everything.
like 0.1% or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I did the thing over 4.5 years, was making a quarter million a year, and so I was on cloud nine, man, until I did this exercise that I always recommend people to take because I enjoy sharing my story, but also tactical things that people can listen to on this podcast and go do today. I looked at my boss's boss. I looked at my VP, my regional VP, and I was like, I'm about to be you in 5 years if I crush. Like that will be me. And that guy was booked back to back on Zoom calls in 15-minute increments. He wasn't seeing his daughters grow up. He was overweight, unhealthy, traveling around, not seeing his family, and not making candidly that much more money than me, maybe 100,000 additional for twice the workload. I said, I don't want to do that. So long story short, we could dissect it, but I ended up beginning to invest in real estate once I made that realization. And I saw my progression, and I saw that the goals that I wanted for me in my life did not align directly with the goals that the company had. And so I was like, it's time to get out of here. So long story short, started buying some rental properties. I didn't have a sexy portfolio. I did it on the easiest, least sexiest way ever. I house hacked, did the co-living strategy, rented the other bedrooms out, started up my podcast where I interview multimillionaires every single week for 2.5 years now, Action Academy Podcast. That ended up becoming its own business, which I built a couple other businesses on top of, along with the real estate. Was able to leave that job March 2022, March 17th. So it's almost the 2-year anniversary.
Wow.
Then I went to travel full time around the world for 8 months afterwards, and now built my own business off of the back end of that. And now we're doing over $1 million a year from that. Almost pure, like it's pretty pure cash flow. We're running like about a 70%, 60% margin on that one, man. So it's a blast.
That's amazing. There's a lot of things about your story I find. I'm sure there's way more to it, but like me, I was someone that, I had that revelation. I was making money, but I didn't want to keep chasing it. Those calls from the sales manager or from a boss, like, hey, are you going to sell any more widgets, or how's this going at the end of the quarter? No matter how good you do, you're always chasing the next big thing. And it was like, slap on the back. Hey, what are you doing next quarter? What's happening here? And still, even though it wasn't necessarily a time for money trade, you brought up a really good point that the goals of the company were different than my personal goals. And it's just something a lot of people don't get to, but I think it's really powerful. There's a transformation journey that happens there. I remember I actually left about 2.5 years ago, similar time frame to you. And I was sitting right where I'm sitting right now at my desk. And having this revelation of like imagining those quarter end calls from my manager saying, hey, how are you going to sell more stuff? And just what came out of my mouth was, thank God I'm not working that job anymore, right? Because it allows for this life that I can travel and I can do the things that I want to do. And it's interesting where it's landed, I think both of us, is not yachts and Mai Tais and just simply travel for the sake of travel, but you've kind of doubled down with, hey, I've got more purpose. I've started multiple companies. I've got multiple 7-figure businesses. Like, talk to us about that. Like, why has that, like, what's kind of your why that's made you, because you don't have to work in the way that you're working, but what's pushing you to do that?
Man, and that is my message. That's like my mission and my message that I want to share with everybody is everybody thinks that what they want is that they're going to quit this job. They're going to go sit on the beach, sip Mai Tais like you're talking about. And that's going to be their existence. But if you're a high performer and you financially get to a point where you're able to do that and retire, you aren't able to emotionally and mentally retire. That's the kicker. I get really pissed off, Bronson, at listening to these podcasts and reading these books, acting like financial freedom is the answer. Financial freedom is the beginning of life. It's not the end. It's not the end destination. It's the start of the race. Like when you become financially free, you're walking up to the starting line. And then the guy's standing there with the gun saying, go. And now that is when you, as a human being, are now running your race for the first time in your adult life. You're running your own race. You're becoming your own man, your own woman, your own business owner. So it's just like, that is a message that I want to get across is it's not just about the passive income. The passive income is the ultimate tool to yield to the final destination, which is what I call passionate income. So what can you get paid to do that you would already happily do for free? So they talk about that in grade school, right? Elementary. Like, oh yeah, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I was like, oh, thank you, Mrs. Johnson. That means so much to me, But I got a mortgage. People are listening to this. I got kids to pay. I got kids to feed. I got bills to pay. What are you talking about? So it's a combination of the art and the science, to use a Tony Robbins term. We use the science of passive investing and through real estate businesses, creating your own businesses, stuff like that, asset classes like that, to be able to yield the freedom to utilize the art, which is, okay, what am I great at? What does the world want? What does the market need? And what can I get paid to do? And then that intersection is where your passionate income is. And for me, it originated from just necessity. I had so many people reaching out to me, hundreds of people each week asking, hey, you're traveling, you're working this corporate job. How the hell did you pull this off? And you're still not bankrupt years later. I'm making more money now than I was before in my corporate job. So like, how did you do that? And I would just help people for free. And then we can go into the business process, but it eventually built itself into its own company of now we help 6-figure employees become 7-figure business owners. And it's the most fulfilling and rewarding thing we've ever done in our entire lives. And it's amazing.
Well, I love what you shared, man. There's so much about what you shared is so powerful. I was getting goosebumps. Just the idea that, like, and a lot of people, like you said, they'll start out thinking, I want that lifestyle where I don't have to work, but we're made to work. We're made to do something, but
Yeah.
it's something like 65% of people don't like their jobs. They don't like their managers. They don't like what they do. And that's a really, it's a tragedy that's the case. I mean, we should be at a place where, once we have enough to support ourselves, like you said, then you can approach the starting line. You can start creating for yourself, for the world. There's a Japanese term called ikigai, which is like all
Yeah.
those things coming
Love
out.
it.
When you were talking, I was like, it's all those things coming
Ikigai.
together at once. And it's amazing what happens. And there's a proverb, Asian proverb I like. It says, "Without vision, people perish." And I just see so many people just going through. I've got the job that I have to have. I'm in the marriage. I mean, they're going through the motions. They're doing it because they have to do it. And when you get to a place where you're free, then you can be like, well, what? If I
What
didn't,
do I
if
like?
money, if money and time were no, what would I create? What would I do with my life? And it's the idea of like watching yourself, like seeing the world needs more people that have come alive with what they're here to do and really discover their purpose. Now you got this at a very young age. I know you work with a lot of people that are older. What do you say to somebody that's kind of like in a let's say they've got 4 kids and they're, like
Mhm.
they're working a job they don't like, and how do you work through that or work with people that are kind of have some challenges to just, okay, go from, oh yeah, I want to quit and go do this, but I can't right now. Like, how do I, what's the step between here and there, especially if there's some external challenges there like that?
Oh, you just gotta believe in yourself, man. No, we'll get into it. No,
No, that's true.
I'm about to drop a quote, and this quote's about to be so good, and it's about to tie in so well with everything that you just said. It's another Asian proverb that you guys are gonna go stop what you're doing. You're gonna leave this podcast a 5-star rating and review.
Love it.
So another one that I love, man, is action without vision is a daydream. And then vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare.
Is that your quote?
No, it's an Asian proverb.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Whatever you do in life, there's always a small Asian child that does it better. I promise you.
That's right.
So
That's awesome.
anyways, what it all boils down to is at the end of the day, you have people in all these different socioeconomic conditions, right? A lot of people are saying, hey, Brian, this is awesome that you say this. I work 60 hours a week. I have 3 kids, 4 kids. I have a mortgage. I have these bills. I have this car payment. I have student loan debt. Okay, cool. Step one, first and foremost, is people have things backwards. We hear the words analysis paralysis thrown around like it's some terminal disease, right? Absolute bullshit, or bull crap if you want to edit that out. I don't know if I can cuss on here.
It's fine. Yeah,
but absolute bull crap. So analysis paralysis only exists because you're allowing it to exist. You can simply make the decision to change that today. People wait for the confidence to take action, but the reality is that the action is what yields the confidence. Taking action is what yields confidence. So you can literally do yourself and like work yourself and move yourself and act yourself into anything that you want. So people are sitting on the sidelines and they're like, well, I don't know what I want. I don't know how to get started. I don't know where to go next, because they've never properly taken the time to actually diagnose and determine where they're heading towards in general.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me, to bring this down to earth, right? Whenever I speak woo-woo, I'm going to bring it down into a tactic. So for me, I was in my corporate job. I said, what life do I want to live? And I wrote out what's called a 3-year vivid vision. It's a wonderful book by Cameron Herold.
Yeah,
and I also wrote about it in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Cameron's now a personal friend of mine. And he came and spoke to our community now, and it's been awesome. So he writes about, what would you do if you had, unlimited money? If money wasn't an object, what's your perfect day? What's your perfect week? What's your perfect business look like? And I wrote in my cubicle, working that job, I was at my desk writing this out. And I said, man, I wake up and I'm in Mykonos and I walk out on my balcony and I can feel the cobblestones warm from the Greek sun rising in the morning. And I don't have any calls. And in the afternoon, I have some business meetings that I can do virtually from anywhere with a Mac and a mic, and I can make money anywhere around the world. That is my dream.
Yeah.
And that was my 3-year vision. I wrote that out in 2020. And if you do the math, I did it in 2022. So I did it a year early. So that is the number one thing that you guys need to focus on is you need to create a vision of your end destination, because we use the end destination and the end vision to determine the investments and the asset classes that we participate in today. For instance, how many of your listeners right now are buying single family real estate or attempting to, and they're maybe saving up money for a year, 2 years. They're looking for that house that will cash flow them something, and they still haven't made the move on the house, right? That's only going to give you $150, $200 of passive cash flow per month.
If you're lucky, if you get
If
any
you're
cash flow these days,
lucky.
yeah.
And these people that are doing this have $50,000 of cash in the bank. They make $300,000 a year. I'm like, wait a second. So if you just had clarity, you'd realize you can't invest in this asset class at all.
Yeah.
It's not going to move you towards where you want to go. You need to
Yeah.
do commercial. You need to buy a small business. You need to do something along those lines. So there's 3 levels of clarity, and I'll get off my soapbox here for a second, but I just created this framework and it really is helping people, and I want to share it on all these podcasts. So the 3 levels of clarity are directional, sequential, and tactical. So directional, where are you going? What do you want? Do you want to be location independent? What role do you want to play in these partnerships? Do you want to be the capital, the more passive side? Do you want to be the operating partner in these partnerships? What role do you want to play? What does a perfect week and a perfect day look like? Where are you living? Directional. Sequential. How fast do you want to get there? That will determine what investments that you invest in and what asset classes. Because if you want to replace $10,000 of passive cash flow in a year, you can't do that through single family real estate. You got to do that through buying like a small business or something. So sequential lets you know, okay, here's my timeline. I want to do this in 2 years. That impacts your asset classes, which leads all the way down to tactical, which is now I know where I'm going and how fast I want to get there. And then only these 2 or 3 asset classes are the asset classes that will yield this outcome. So now I go find the people that are doing these asset classes and I steal their models and steal the tactics that are very easily and recognizably documented across the internet. Because Bronson, correct me if I'm wrong, people have bought real estate before, correct?
Course, for many years.
So why are we all so emotionally trying to make our own models and systems to do this? You don't have to. It's that short answer of the answer. It's like you brought up a do what other people are doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I love, I can tell from you, you're similar to me. I had a goal is in 3 years, I want to leave my job. And I was able to leave in like 2.5 years. So it came before, but it's always like create a goal. And Tony Robbins talks about that, create a goal and then continually change your approach, be willing to try different things. So if you have an end goal in mind, and this is what I tell people too, some people like, it's all about making the decision, right? Once I made the decision that I was actually committed to leave my job, things I didn't know how I was going to, I had no idea how I was going to do it. I just thought, oh, maybe real estate, maybe that. I tried different things. But once I committed to it, then it actually began to happen, right? And so it's in the moments of decision that your destiny is shaped, right? So you make that decision. And I have this theory that life has an action bias. So if somebody has great theory and they have a great goal, but they just are creating plans, but they don't actually do anything, the person that starts taking action and then steps back and reflects at it and just say, okay, how did this work? Okay, let's change whatever, and just keeps doing that. It's amazing what can happen, right? And I think, if anybody who's an entrepreneur is all about trying different things, figure out what works, and that doesn't work, try a different thing or add on to this or double down on that. And it's just amazing for a lot of people. We get stuck in, like you talk about analysis paralysis, but a lot of times it's because we haven't made the commitment that we're willing to do the work to do what it takes. We haven't either come up with a clear enough vision of like, this is like Cameron Herold, clear, vivid vision, or we haven't actually committed to that outcome, right? So how do you, it sounds like you're doing a fair amount of mindset work as well as helping people to move forward. What are some assets and some different approaches you find people are using to be able to get closer to their financial goals?
Yeah, so it's actually been a super fun thought experiment. So like you said, it all boils down to like where you're trying to go, right? So what we did is we went from the traditional like online course model. So one of our core businesses is the Action Academy. So we do like the podcast, our entire business models. Let's give all the information away for free and sell the implementation, right? The entire business model. So our best calls that we have internally, we'll post on the podcast for free. We'll post on the YouTube. Like I'll make a video on it. I'll send a newsletter because it's the implementation that matters. Because at the end of the day, it's not as much the how, but it's more so like the where and the who, right? So where do you want to go, and then who's already been there? So what we do in the core business is we just have every single person that is already financially free is like half the community, and then the other half of the operators that are trying to pull it off. So the main ones that we've seen have been for short-term cash, land flipping has been
Mm,
huge. I wouldn't
yeah,
necessarily classify that as a passive asset. It's
sure.
very much so an active asset, but from a fast cash generation standpoint, dear God, man, people are ripping in land flipping right now.
Yeah.
Like, and that rhymed, that was catchy. I didn't mean to do
Ripping and
that.
flipping.
Ripping and
That's
land
another book. That's
flipping,
another
man.
book for you there. Yeah.
Yeah, ripping and land flipping. So
Yeah.
self-storage has been huge. Multifamily has been huge. We got a lot of people doing mobile home parks. Now business acquisition has become a lot more in vogue. We have a lot of people that are buying everything from laundromats to car washes, which are slightly more active. And then going all the way to like service companies, like small, like 5 to 10 man service companies. I have a buddy that just did like a hearth installation company, stove installation company.
Wow.
So it just depends what your end destination is. But if you're really looking for like the faster cash flow, the business acquisition route we have found to be a little bit better. We're
Yeah.
currently looking at a couple of different businesses to vertically integrate. And I'll kind of bring this down to earth here in a second because I'm kind of floating away with all this different talk for the audience. But right now we're looking at like CPA firms, like legal practices, stuff that we can vertically buy and integrate within our community. But the short answer of the question is uh, for the listener, you need to decide today what you're optimizing for. Are you optimizing for cash flow or for equity? Because that heavily influences your investment vehicle. So I would make the assumption that a lot of you are investing for cash flow, which most people don't even realize. Like they're like, I want to do this multifamily property, right? But like you're not going to really get the payout from
Yeah.
that
For 5 years
until three
or
to
something.
five years
Yeah.
down the road when the balloon matures.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you would have known that, then maybe that wasn't the best cash flow vehicle to begin.
Right.
So, yeah, so I'll pause there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it all
No,
comes down to people and systems.
yeah, no, that's it, man. That's really a really good word. And I think, for me having over 2,000 calls with high net worth investors, a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do. And a lot of times I found there's another conversation that's a passive versus an active role, where if
Mhm.
somebody's got a net worth of 5 million or something, it makes sense to maybe find deals to do where you're not as active in it. We've done a lot more things on the
Right.
business side. We've done a lot more. We found real estate, and we have 2,000 multifamily units, but we found in general a lot of the deals, like there's cash flow coming, or there's things down the road that will cash out, but it's insurance and the costs have gone up, whatever. So we're our ATM machine fund we're doing, our business, we have a private equity thing we're involved with, oil and gas, other things that produce cash flow. So yeah, it's so important to figure out what you need to optimize for. What would you say is if you were going to give some advice to someone who's like in a similar situation that you were in, who's in a job, who's working, who's making good money, and maybe just doesn't really see the need for it right now, of like, okay, well, why should I look out? I'm making pretty good money now, or what's the urgency, right? Like what's a reason someone should start figuring out how to invest and make money while they sleep, or make money outside of their job?
So I'll say that that is a completely personal thing, and in our business, we have made the conscious decision to not be the person or the message that moves the needle there. Because like I don't know about you, but like convincing someone to get up
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, I want to lose weight," or convincing someone to get up and say, "Hey, I want to quit my job," they just simply haven't faced enough pain.
Mm,
Pain is awful. We all shy away from it, but it's also the greatest motivator. If
yeah.
I hadn't been denied an $82,000 bonus during COVID, then maybe I would still be at that job.
Wow. You were denied,
But
they were going to pay it to you and they just said, we're not going to pay you, or
correct. Yeah.
what happened? Like, how could they do that? Or what?
They fired, I think, 10% of the workforce overall because we all went through that. And I was one of the ones that remained. And I was like, that's when I hit everything. I was like the top. And they said, hey, we can't justify paying out bonuses at this amount when we just fired, they thought it was a bad PR look.